This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And Happy New Year, folks. Thank you so much for joining in on the Open Mic Night podcast. I am your host, Noah Taluki, and on today's episode, we ring in the new year talking about Michigan and Georgia. Michigan falling 34-11 at the hands of the mighty Bulldogs. We'll break that game down for you and also address a little bit of some rumblings about Jim Harbaugh possibly going to the National Football League, making a return, and also the Lions losing 51-29, getting blown out again in a no-show against the Seahawks. I'll break that down, and really, I want to ask a question to some Lions fans out there, and a little bit of maybe some worry that you might be experiencing, maybe for the future, going long term. And I'll address that a little bit later as well, along with some Aiden Hutchinson stuff as well. But hopefully everybody had a great weekend and a great New Year. I definitely did. It was fun, watching the Michigan game. We don't get cable anymore at my house. Of course, I'm home for break, so my dad and I, we went out to a bar, and we watched the game, and it was just a lot of very sad Michigan fans over there. Good food though, but unfortunately, a lot of sad Michigan fans watching on the million TVs, million big screen TVs that they had in there. So it's, I mean, what can I say about this Michigan team? Now, look, I said last week, I said, I think Michigan has a shot. I didn't think that they were gonna, necessarily win. But I thought they were gonna be fighting a lot more. I didn't think that Georgia was gonna trounce on Michigan like they did. And Stetson Bennett, a walk-on. Usually in the playoff you see, better quarterbacks. I mean, you see like last year, Justin Fields, the Trevor Lawrences, Bryce Young, Tua. That's just in the last couple years. Stetson Bennett, he's probably not going to play on Sundays. This is a walk-on, sort of a game manager-like quarterback. I thought Michigan had a chance to pounce on him. And all he did was, and he's probably going to win the Burlsworth Trophy for the walk-on of the year in college football. I mean, he picked apart Michigan, 20 of 30, 313 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. I mean, I was not expecting Michigan to just get ran over last week. And it's just kind of sad because, Michigan, they had a good year. I mean, beating Ohio State for the first time in over a decade, winning the Big Ten for the first time in 17 years. But I think in terms of maybe that standard, it's good. But if you hold Michigan to the standard of we have to compete with Alabama, with Georgia, with the SEC, Michigan, they're just not there yet. They're not there. And I find it fascinating sometimes how some Michigan fans out there, they're just okay with this. They're okay with beating Ohio State. They're okay with just beating Ohio State and just winning the Big Ten championship. They're not okay with winning the national championship. And I think that's what a lot of fans thought Harbaugh would win the national championship. Or was brought in to win the national championship. And, it just, obviously, there's just a lot of work to do. Now, I don't know with the whole Michigan thing, and look, I'm not an expert on it, but I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if any of it has to do with academic restrictions. I mean, as we all know, Michigan is one of the best academic public colleges in the country. And, I don't know if maybe the academic requirements are holding some of these bigger recruits back that maybe might not have as good of the grades to get into Michigan. Maybe they're better. It's just better going to Alabama or Georgia. I don't know. I feel like it's sort of like a Notre Dame situation a little bit, maybe at least from the academic side. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Have to do a little more research on it, but I think it's an interesting point. Maybe that's what's holding. Maybe that's just one thing. Not the only thing, but one thing that maybe is holding Michigan back is maybe some of the academic standards that some of the athletes and the recruits have to live up to. But anyways, I find it interesting, too, how Cade McNamara was benched. Threw those 2 interceptions, and he was benched for J.J. McCarthy, who is supposed to be, sort of the future of Michigan football. Look, guys, I don't – these guys can't – I don't trust these guys to be like some dynamic quarterbacks. Now, they could be game managers. It's fine. But they're not like Bryce Youngs or, Trevor Lawrence's. They're not one of those quarterbacks. So Michigan, they, in order for them to compete, they also have to get one of these guys that's highly touted, that can throw the football like Bryce Young and those guys if they want to compete. Which brings me to my next point. There's been some rumblings among some NFL insiders and all that Jim Harbaugh is interested in coming back to the NFL. Of course, Jim Harbaugh was the head coach of the 49ers from 2011 to 2014. Went to the Super Bowl, 2 NFC championships, played against his brother and lost basically on the fourth quarter after a miraculous comeback. And of course, as everyone knows, he played in the NFL for over a decade. I always thought Jim Harbaugh was good for the NFL. I just think there was some bad circumstances that ended his tenure in San Francisco. But, he put together some pretty dang good football teams. When you go to the NFC Championship game your first year, and then the second year you make it to the Super Bowl, you had Alex Smith got better and better under Harbaugh, and then they started using Colin Kaepernick a little bit. And it was just an excellent defense. I wonder, maybe for Harbaugh, because if you think about it at Michigan, how much better is it going to get? This is year 7. Year 7. This is the first time you've won the Big Ten championship. First time you beat Ohio State in your career. Didn't even beat Sparty, but that's a whole nother story. Maybe it's time to get out. Because why not, if you're Jim Harbaugh, why not go out on top? And I'm not saying on top in terms of winning the national championship. On top as in, I won the Big Ten. We delivered a championship to Michigan for the first time in 17 years. Beat Ohio State for the first time in a decade. That's a lot of things that Michigan fans pride themselves on. Why not? You did it. There was no chance you were beating Georgia in that game. Not at all. And I just wonder, maybe it's a good fit. I think one team in particular would be great for Harbaugh, the Raiders. Of course, John Gruden getting fired a couple months ago. Got the interim coach now. Why not? He kind of has a little bit of that Raider moxie to him, I think. And they've been trying for a couple decades now to get back to that 70s Raiders. Shout out to John Madden, who just passed away. The 70s bad boy images, 70s and 80s, knock you in the teeth, take a bunch of these outcasts and make them into a championship level team. I think John Gruden really, or I'm sorry, I believe Jim Harbaugh, I really think he would be a good fit in Las Vegas. Plus, you have Derek Carr, who seems to be improving the last couple years in Las Vegas. A guy that has publicly stated he'd rather retire than leave Las Vegas. So you assume kind of there's a long-term commitment there. You wouldn't have to rebuild as much or anything. You got a good tight end, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, who really seems to be coming into his own. Why not the Raiders? Why not? I think if Harbaugh were to go to any NFL team, the Raiders would be the best fit. And hopefully the Raiders would start going back to the playoffs and whatnot. But I know Harbaugh's they love to call it a Michigan man, and he loves coaching at his alma mater. I get it. It's a dream. It's a dream job to a certain extent for a guy that played at Michigan, played under Bo, the whole legacy. Probably the greatest quarterback to ever play at the University of Michigan. Now all of a sudden comes back after going far away to the NFL and making all the big money. Not that he's not making any big money, but And then all of a sudden, he's humbled back to Michigan. He's going to deliver a championship. Well, he delivered a Big Ten championship, and he beat Ohio State. And there's no shot at a national championship, at least at this point. In year 7, go to the NFL. I think Jim Harbaugh, it'd be a great fit. I think it'd be a match made in heaven, especially in Las Vegas, like I mentioned with all those other players and whatnot. The situation's just not. You took the half salary, a lot of incentive based. I don't see why not. You'll be facing off against your brother John again. I don't know. I think it's feasible. Anyways, speaking of one of the other NFL teams, the Detroit Lions getting pounced on by the Seattle Seahawks, 51-29 on Sunday in Seattle. Look, I knew that there was a lot of rumblings about Russell Wilson. It might be his final game, over there in Seattle. And I kind of woke up that morning and I said, I don't, especially if it's his last game, sort of similar to the Ben Roethlisberger thing, except on a smaller scale. If it's his last game, I don't think the Lions have any chance of winning. Not that I really care. But Russell Wilson just lit up the Lions. 20 of 29, a little bit less than 250 yards, 4 touchdowns. DK Metcalf. I mean, I felt like for a second they were just playing backyard football. I mean, one of those passes that Russell Wilson threw to DK Metcalf, it was sort of like a lob pass. It was just like a backyard football lob pass. And I just was like, oh my gosh. It can't get that much easier in the NFL, and of course it's against the Lions. It's not supposed to be that easy, those touchdown throws in the NFL. But only against the Lions. That was just, I can't remember which touchdown it was. I believe it was in the first, maybe the third quarter, I don't know. But Lions, they clawed back a little bit, and in Lion-esque style, basically Dan Campbell saying, we got nothing to lose. And I understand they're starting Tim Boyle, and he played well a little bit against Atlanta. There was some flash today, but I'm done with Tim Boyle. I mean, 3 interceptions. The one that could have kept the drive that could have maybe kept the Lions a little bit in the game, he throws an interception wide open right to the Seahawk defender. On the first play, too, on first down. The Lions just didn't show up again. And, Swift was back. Lions didn't really run the ball that well either. I'm on Ross St. Brown, though. I got to say, I think he is I think he could be special. And look, I get it. It's garbage time. It's basically in the season, but he's really stepped up these last 3 or 4 weeks, especially with all those injured receivers. And I think he's taken his game to a whole other level. He could be one of those, now is he like a number 1 kind of guy? We'll see. We'll see, but I think he could definitely be a good 2 or 3 for sure. But he's definitely played the role of number 1 really well right now, being able to get open and really out of college. He was really he didn't have the speed, but he had that route running ability. And in the NFL, you can make up for speed with your route running. And he's just doing a great job of getting open and finally figuring out the NFL. And he's just had a lot of positive things to say about Dan Campbell and company as well. So I really, of course, respect all that. But 8 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown. Kadarius Hodge even getting some action. He had 76 yards on 5 catches, 10 targets. This is a guy, Kadarius Hodge. Where has he been all season? This is a guy that about maybe a quarter to halfway through the season, the Lions traded for, got him from the Browns, picked him off of waivers. I'm sorry, and people thought, well, this is another guy that could really add some speed, and a guy that was a little bit overlooked in Cleveland. Okay, why not? And he was just completely buried on the depth chart. What a wasted. It's kind of like that Trinity Benson pick, trading those 2 draft picks early in the season for Trinity Benson, who's barely played. I mean, he had 2 catches, but these guys aren't part of the long-term future. Kadarius Hodge, Trinity Benson, Craig Reynolds, he played well those couple games, But I'm sorry, like this guy's not going to be on the team next year probably. No, it was cool with the dinky dunk Taylor Decker touchdown as well. His second of his career. I still remember that first touchdown. He threw it into the stands, and he was messaging out to people, "Hey, do you know the guy that caught that ball when I threw it in the stands? I know I want it back. I've been playing football since Little League. I want my ball that I scored my first touchdown with. Never scored." But like a lot of these guys are probably not going to be there. And Dan Campbell even said it in his press conference. Like right now, the Lions are just trying to establish the culture and establish some rhythm for next year and really see who they're going to keep and who's got to go. Who's going to be the culture setters this year? And it sort of brings me to my next question that I talked a little bit about in the teaser. Another no-show with the Lions, and I know they fought back a little bit and then they played around, but they just, for the most part, it just seemed like they just didn't want to be there. And allowing all those, 265 yards on the ground, they were basically arm tackling Rashad Penny, who had a career day, the best game of his career. And I just wonder, and look, I understand the talent's not there. I understand there's a lot of factors into this, but the Lions no-showed again. It's like certain weeks they play and other weeks they don't show up. And I get it. In the NFL, you have snoozers of games. You have games where you're just off. Even the great teams, New England when they had Brady had games like that. But I just feel like this is a lot. Dan Campbell, and we've seen flashes. When the Lions want to play, they do things like beat the Cardinals. But to me, it looked like they didn't want to be there against Seattle, and that's bad for building the culture. You want to see these guys continue to fight every week. And I get it. They have. They have in some aspects. But just sometimes, they're just not showing up. Defensively, especially, they didn't want to show up against Denver. A couple weeks ago, they didn't show up against Seattle. I just don't know. I don't know if it's something to be concerned with, or if it's just they need more pieces defensively, or there's just too many guys hurt right now. They're basically playing with practice squad players. It's hard to, it might be a little hard to, it's good to get those guys motivated, but can they really go out there and defend, one of the best receivers in the NFL in DK Metcalf, And because the other thing too is Seattle's offensive line is not even that good, and they were pushing the Lions around. Levi Onwuzurike and Aleem McNeil, like they were pushing them around. I don't know. Overall, that's the other thing too with Levi and Aleem McNeil. I've been a little bit underwhelmed with them, and I get it. It's their rookie year. They're playing for a bad team. They have to get a little bit more adjusted to the NFL, but I thought they were going to be, I think they really hyped these guys up to be guys that could really be tone setters for this team and really start establishing the culture. I'm not seeing it. They're just kind of like average guys at best. Now, I'm willing to give them a second chance. I'm not giving up on them yet, but at least my first impression this season, Levi and Aleem, they've gotten pushed around a little bit. They've had a little bit of success here and there, little flashes like everyone, but not on a consistent basis. So, I don't know. It worries me a little bit, but at the same time, I think a lot of people understand that, this is Dan Campbell, and he didn't really have a lot to work with, but next season should really be, the judging point, I guess. If the Lions improve, okay. But if they start regressing, that's not a good sign, especially in year 2. Which brings me to my next point about the future. The NFL draft, of course. The Lions now are guaranteed either the first or second pick. I think it's all going to be pending on what happens on Sunday. Of course, the Lions play the Packers at home against Ford Field. By the way, tickets were going for $60 in that game. A lot of starters are going to be resting for Green Bay because they locked up the 1 seed. Aaron Rodgers, he probably won't play. We'll see about Devontae Adams. I know he said he wanted to play just because he didn't want 2 weeks off. $60. Wow, I thought it'd be going cheaper for that, especially with a bunch of starters out. But anyways, so the future. April's the draft. Aiden Hutchinson or Kevon Thibodeau from Oregon. That's been the whole debate. Who do the Lions go with? Who do the Jags go with? Are they going to pick one of these guys? Defensive ends. Aiden Hutchinson did not play well against Georgia. He got pushed around by that Georgia offensive line. And I don't even know if he showed up on the stat sheet. Oh, actually he did. 4 tackles. 1 for a loss. But he did not play as good as that sounded. He looked a little small. Like, no sacks. That's the ones. Michigan had 0 sacks as a team. Is this concerning to you that against the big boys of Georgia, against the top NFL talent, a team that is loaded, with NFL talent, are you concerned that he didn't play well, and will this affect his draft stock? And a little, some people out there think it did a little bit. It dropped him down. But are you willing, as a Lions fan, are you still willing to take Aiden Hutchinson? Are you still willing to do that? Or do you say, nope, bad game against against really, really good competition, not going to work in the NFL, I'd rather take Kevon Thibodeau? Look, I understand it's one game. I get it. Could he have played better? Yes. Does he have a lot of growing up and learning to do? Yes. But the thing with Aiden Hutchinson is that he's flashed so much potential. I mean, look at his performance against Ohio State. I mean, those 3 sacks. And this is a kid with a really, really strong work ethic, a high intensity, high motor. This is a guy that can really help build a culture, and he's just got that really, really good spirit about football, and it's just very genuine. And look at his leadership. I mean, he got to Michigan. The program was a little bit in shambles. I mean, not like scandal and all that stuff, but what I mean is, there's just, I feel like there just wasn't a lot of really, really strong leadership. And they weren't really, they weren't winning at a high level. And, he comes in and they, that's sort of that senior class with Hassan Haskins and him. And, they sort of help create a, sort of a culture, a new way. And now you got other players saying, we're never going to forget this team. We got to live up to this. J.J. McCarthy talking about that, and Blake Corum, those guys, these seniors really set a standard for us. This is a guy that, can do that. He's done it at Michigan. He needs to go to a team, I think, that, needs a culture builder. And I think Lions are a perfect fit in terms of that. Now, and I feel like that Aiden, especially now, obviously, he's going to be preparing for the NFL draft. And I just feel like he's one of those guys that he's going to learn from his mistakes. He's going to learn what it's like against the competition. I'm sure he'll get a Senior Bowl invite and all that, so he'll get to see how he stacks up. But this is a guy who's just gotten better and better each year at Michigan. Why not? I think this guy can get better and better at the NFL level. He came out of Divine Child in Dearborn, as a really, really good player. But, the big boys of Michigan, it's a lot different than playing at Divine Child. Big Ten football is a lot different than playing, against, Annapolis or Chandler Park or whoever the heck they played. No knock on those schools. But, he just rose to the occasion and got better and better. I think it's a little bit, but not a lot. Not a lot. I still think there's a lot of room for improvement. And I think Aiden's one of those guys that will perform and will be able to train and compete. That's for sure. All right, one more thing before we close out, and I just want to mention this really fast. This whole Antonio Brown saga is, it's got me thinking a lot the last couple days. Antonio Brown, and I know this doesn't have to do anything with the Lions, but it's a big national story, and I wanted to address it. Antonio Brown, the Bucs are playing at the Jets, and literally this guy takes off his uniform during the game, about halfway through the game, takes off his pads, and you could see players are saying, hey, no, don't do it, man, don't do it. Mike Evans came over to him, throws off his pads, takes off his shirt, throws it in the stands, takes off his gloves, throws it in the stands. He's shirtless, and he's jumping around in the end zone, like trying to pump up the crowd and waving a peace sign as he runs to the tunnel. And I guess he got into a cab or some police, whatever, and they took him to the airport. Like, he literally left an NFL game. This guy was playing. He had catches in the game. He had yards. Like, this guy was playing in the game, and he just checks out. Nobody in the league has ever seen anything like this before, and the Antonio Brown saga just continues. This is a guy that literally could be one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, but I think he's just ruining some chances of his, with getting into the Hall of Fame later. And, it's just sad. It's really sad. There's a whole thing with the mental health, and especially the last couple years. And, Tampa Bay, Bruce Arians, he's a no nonsense kind of guy. He basically told Antonio Brown, you have one strike, or, you have one chance. That's it. And if strike one happens, you're out. And they had the whole, the COVID vaccine card thing and all that. But Bruce Arians was willing to work with him there. But after the game, he said he is no longer a Buck. He cannot work with those guys. But, Tom Brady addressed it as well after the game, how, feel for his situation and really hope that he gets the help that he needs. And I'm with Brady. I mean, I'm really hoping that everything's okay with him. Like, he needs help. He can't have all these, they call them the haters. He can't have a bunch of haters, at him. He's got to make sure people have to make sure you got to support him in every way. Now, you may not respect the decisions, that he made, obviously, during the game. That was very, very uncalled for, but in terms of supporting him and making sure that, he's getting the help that he needs, yes, because this is very peculiar. I mean, like I said before, the league has never seen something like this before. It's like, how do you deal with a guy that literally quits during the game and throws his equipment into the stands and pieces everyone out as he's running in the end zone towards the tunnel? It's crazy. But I hope Antonio Brown, I really hope he's okay and he gets the help he deserves. I don't know if this guy will ever be in the NFL again. It seems like he's really exhausted every chance that he's gotten, especially since the whole Raiders incident. So we'll see. But a very peculiar and odd situation that they had in New York with the Jets and the Bucks. And then he was spotted at the Brooklyn Nets game, like the next day, sitting courtside with sunglasses on. I just don't know. I don't know what's going on. Like I said, I hope everything's okay. It was a big story, and I thought I should address it. That's for sure. Make sure to check out all the other great content on the podcast network. Doc and Jock, always a really fun podcast to listen to. And the Fan Report, Michigan podcast. I'm sure Steve Dace and company will have a great discussion on that Michigan and Georgia game. And also the Practice Squad. Really, really fun and entertaining as well. And as the Lions season comes to the end, still make sure to check out John Macaroon's content on Sports Illustrated Lions. And he does a fantastic job with that, always putting out great content and, really keeping us informed as Lions fans, as the Lions fans that we are. So hopefully, we'll see about this last week of the Lions season, but it's all about the future from here on out. Same with Michigan football as well. Thanks again, folks, for tuning in, and make sure to tune in next week only on Open Mic Night.